Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to my YouTube channel. So today's video is about GitLab Container Registry. We have two videos on GitLab Container Registry. In part 1, we will learn how to use GitLab Container Registry. So in this video, we will be pulling Docker image from Dockerhub and push that image to GitLab Container Registry. So we'll be kind of like learning GitLab Container Registry, how to pull and push images to Container Registry so that you could use in your independent projects or personal projects or even at work. So in the second video, I will show you how to write a very simple Docker file, and we will build an image out of the Docker file, and finally we'll push to GitLab Container Registry. So after watching these two videos, you will be able to use GitLab Container Registry or maybe a bit of Docker on your own. So simply put, what is GitLab Container Registry? So in a very simple or simplest term, I could say it's just a storage or a container where you could basically store your Docker images. So in GitLab, every project that you create by default in free tier is actually for all the tiers. You will find a container registry. So similar container registry could be Azure Container Registry, Dockerhub, or Google Container Registry. So if you are familiar with at least one container registry such as Dockerhub, so this tutorial is going to be very familiar to you. For this video, I am using VS Code and I will write all the steps so that you can follow. In this video, I will also show you how you could authenticate to GitLab using personal access token or PAT in short. So we can actually log into GitLab Container Registry using password, where we do not have to have two-factor authentication enabled, and the other way is actually using the personal access token, but in this case we must need to enable two-factor authentication. So remember that once you have enabled two-factor authentication, you cannot write docker login -u your username and then you just paste the password. No, this is not gonna work. In this case, you need to paste the personal access token. So let's have a look on the steps. So the first step is going to be docker pull nginx. So we are going to pull an image from Dockerhub. So to pull an image from Dockerhub, you do not have to have an account. Keep that in mind. So now let's open up a browser, and in here I'm going to show you how you could look for a particular image on Dockerhub. So just type in Dockerhub nginx. So in this case I type in nginx. So if the image is different in your case, you can type that image name. So that will actually take you to the official image of nginx. So now notice we have nginx :nothing. So it means that we are going to pull nginx latest image. If you want to have particular tag for nginx, you could type in nginx : and then the version. So you can find more information on Dockerhub. If you're interested, just look around and then you should find all the versions listed for nginx. Notice, once I have pulled nginx image, actually it did not pull from the scratch. It's because the nginx image was already available on my Mac. So therefore it's not gonna pull the image again because it is actually taking it from the local cache since the image is available on our local computer. So let's go ahead and run a container out of that image. So container actually is a runtime instance. So to run the container, we run docker run -d. D means detach. So I means interactive, T means sudo terminal, and then you pass in the name --name. And then the last portion was image ID. You could also put the image name as well there. To get into container, we need to run docker exec -it and then the container ID and then a shell. So in this case, shell is going to be bash. I means interactive, T means tty. So using curl command, we can see welcome to nginx. Remember, we did not pass the port number here. It's by default port 80. So if you are running on a different port using docker run -p flag, then you can actually include the port number as well. Docker ps command will show you a lot of information. Notice that nginx page cannot be accessed from our local machine. In this case, Mac machine, is because we did not expose the port on the host part. We just exposed the port on the container part. So remember that. So if we run docker ps -a, it will list stopped and running containers, and if you run docker images, it will actually output all the available images on the local machine. Excellent, we have managed to run a container. So let's go to gitlab.com, select your projects and click on packages and registries. You would not see this if you have ever pushed any images to container registry. So if you have not, then you should see this information on the screen. So we are done with step 1. So now let's look into step number 2, so which is about docker tag and image. So if you run docker tag -help, so this command is very helpful. If you run --help, so it tells you how exactly this command is going to work. So first of all, we need to write docker tag, and then we need to write source image. So in our case, source image is going to be nginx, and then the target image. So if we run docker images, then you can get the information for the source image. Instead of nginx, we could also type in the image hash ID here. That would also work. And then copy from the clipboard that I have done from gitlab.com. And the latest actually is not required, because if you don't pass in here, I just wanted to show you, if you don't pass in here, it would be by default latest. So in this command, we run docker tag and then the source is nginx, and the target is registry.gitlab.com/youtube27. So that's how you can run docker tag command. So just to let you know that before you push any image to any kind of registry, docker tag is a mandatory step. So you must need to tag your image. So if we run now docker images, then you can see on the screen, we can see our image has successfully been tagged. So now we are done with our step number 2, and we need to look into step number 3. So this is also very important to let you know that docker login is a mandatory step as well. It's because before you push an image to your private or public registry, you need to authenticate, right? Therefore, you need to log in to that particular registry. So in this case, we log into registry.gitlab.com. If it is Dockerhub, you can just write Dockerhub and pass in the credentials. So it's the name and then the password. That should be enough. So docker login command will take also registry. If it is other than Dockerhub, you need to pass in. If you only type docker login and then you press enter on your keyboard, it means that you are going to log into Dockerhub. If this is not the case, then you need to pass at least the registry URL, and username is not required because it will be asking for the username and the password once you press enter. Next command we are going to run is docker commit. Docker commit is not a mandatory step, but I just wanted to show you this is a very good practice. For example, if you're working on Dockerfile and you have made some changes, so it is really good when you push the new image to container registry, your teammate will know what changes were made part of that commit. So we run docker commit -help, so to see actually what options are available there. So the one we're interested here is -m or -- message, because we want to write a message, right? So we write a very simple message, nginx image taken from Dockerhub. So after that, we need to have the container. So in this case, you can just paste the container ID. So to get the container ID, you can run docker ps. So that will list you the running container. So you can just copy that container ID and paste it here. So after that, we need to pass in the repository tag that we have already done. So to do that, you can run docker images and copy and paste it here. So now we are done with docker commit. So step number 4. I will also write the instruction on the VS Code. Later on I will share it on the video description. So we have tagged our image. We have also added a commit message. So the final part is to run docker push command, and note that before you run docker push command, you must log in. Let it be Dockerhub or any container registry, you must log in. Remember that, otherwise you will not be able to push to the repository. So now we run docker push -help command to see all the available options. So here you can see -a. So push all tagged images in the repository. Actually, we are not interested in pushing all the tagged images, rather we are interested in a particular one. So we would pass in docker push and then our particular tag. So as I said before, you can get the tag running docker images, copy it and paste it here. Once you're done, you're ready to go with the push. It might take a little bit time depending on the size of the image and also the speed of the network, so bear with that. So in our case, the nginx image itself is not that big, so it should not take more than 2 minutes. If you have noticed the help command of docker push, you can see there is a option -q. If you do not want to see this purpose, you can actually use that. So that will hide this information. And the another option that you have seen with a disable content trust, this is very important to understand. By default, content trust is enabled. Meanwhile, let us check in the GitLab UI. Click on Container Registry, and now you see that your repository is actually created there, but there is 0 tags at this moment. So it's because the image pushing is not completed yet. As soon as the image is pushed to the GitLab Container Registry, you should see 1 tag at least. I would also like to highlight here, if the original image size is, let's say, 200 megabytes, after image is pushed to GitLab Container Registry, you will see like 100 or 120 or even less than 100. It's because the moment you push an image to GitLab Container Registry, GitLab actually will compact the image size. So as you can see, it's taking some time. So I think I'm gonna pause the video, and once the upload is done, I will come back. So as it looked, it has taken a little bit over 2 minutes, I think. I even didn't count the time. So finally, we have got our image pushed to container registry. Excellent. So it has taken quite some time, I think, more than 2 minutes. So let's get back to the GitLab UI and click on container registry, and you should be able to see at least 1 tag. So let's run docker images command, and here you can see to the right hand side 133 MB. So this is the actual size of the image, but in the GitLab UI you can see the size is 50 plus something megabytes. As you can see, the image size was reduced by over 60% after the upload. So it's always the case. So if you are using any kind of container registry, actually pretty much all the container registry provider does the same thing. There is a bit of background noise, is because goddamn planes are flying over every now and then today. So if you're interested, you can see the image history as well. So you run docker image history, and you could also pass in the image name or the ID, and here you can see how many bytes are written on which particular layer, and it gives you pretty much information. Like as you can see, CMD, so nginx daemon is running, and nginx actually is exposed to port 80. There is also entry point, and there are some copy commands going on. However, if you did not write the docker file, you can always run the docker image history command, and it will give you a lot of information about the image. So you can also find information such as how many bytes were written on which particular layer, and as you can see, it talks about CMD, expose, copy, and variable labels. So you can get actually pretty much a summary about an image history. So this command is very useful. one quick tip that I would like to share with you guys. So if you pull an image, let's say in this case from Dockerhub, and you don't know actually what is going on within the image, you can always run the history command. So in this case, let's say if you did not know which port was exposed to for nginx, so you can easily find the port number here. For some reason, if you need to delete the tag from the remote repository, you can do it from GitLab UI as well. Now I would like to also show you how you can pull image from GitLab Container Registry. It's actually the same process. So before we did Docker pull and then the nginx, now it's not gonna be like what we did before. So we need to pass in the registry.gitlab.com. So we just copy it from GitLab UI and paste it here. So as I said before, for Dockerhub is little bit special, but for every other container registry, you have to always pass in the URL to do that. So we did not remove the local image, therefore when you do a Docker pull, it's not gonna pull the image, is because it's gonna find the image in the local cache. Therefore it says that image is up to date. So when you pull a Docker image, first of all it will look for the image on your local computer. If it doesn't find it, then it will actually pull it from the upstream. So remember that this is very important to understand. Alright, we talked about Docker login using password. But as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm gonna show you about the personal access token, in short, which is called PAT. So if you have enabled two-factor authentication on gitlab.com to GitLab Container Registry, it's because GitLab will enforce you to use the access token. So keep that in mind. So how do you generate the access token? You just need to go to user settings, and then if you have any access token already there, you can revoke it or you can generate a new one. So there are a couple of options that you could actually choose from within these scopes. You could actually choose API. So if you choose API, you do not have to check any other options. But here I'm gonna go for read repository and write repository. Read repository will give you options to pull images from repository, but if you wanna push, then you need to have the right permission. So therefore you need to choose read repository and write repository. And you could also set the expiry date for the access token if you want to. So that should be enough. Once you are happy with that, you just click on create. To enable two-factor authentication, you need to do some pre-work. You need to download Google Auth app from Android store or from Apple store. So once you get the access token, do not refresh the page. It's because it is one-time token. So if you refresh the page, you will lose the token. So in this case, you need to generate it again. So just copy and store it somewhere where it can be safe. You can also use KeePass or LastPass to store your secrets. That is kind of like convenient way of doing that. So it's up to you how you store it. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna do a Docker login. And it's the same process. You use the URL of your GitLab Container Registry, and then if you want, you can also use the username. But now what I'm trying to do is just for the demo purposes, I'm just pasting in the token on the command line. You should not be doing that. So here, as you can see, this is not working. It's because I have not downloaded the app and neither I have actually enabled two-factor authentication. If you do so, it's gonna work. So you write docker login -u and then you write the URL for your container registry, and when it asks the password, you just paste the token instead. So that should work for you. So that's it for today. If you find this video useful and you wanna support me, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you and cheers.